Okay, everyone, I guess we can start. And if there are more participants to join, we will, of course, let them in the moments that will follow. In the meantime, I would like to welcome you all officially to our 8th webinar, organized as part of the series of webinars entitled Business and Art Come Together. We cooperate instead of competing, which are organized and implemented under the framework of the Erasmus Plus project Cultural Footprint. Now, for those that haven't participated in any of our previous webinars, I will explain you what the Cultural Footprint Project is about. This is a young entrepreneurial project for emerging artists, which aims to develop an entrepreneurial mindset among them and encourage them to take responsibility for their professional careers and life achievements. The project applies a 4-step methodology that improves youngsters' skills and help them realize their first entrepreneurial ideas. So the first step is to inspire the artists. The second one is to teach them practical skills, especially about entrepreneurial development. The third one is to mentor them, and the fourth one is to network them. The project idea is about promoting young entrepreneurship, individual tutoring, digital skills, and creativity thinking among youth cultural workers and emerging artists in the role of learners, and business experts in the role of trainers. So the project also promotes a learning by doing process during the collaboration of the two target groups I just mentioned. So today's webinar will introduce you to the 8th module that has been developed under the project Cultural Footprint as well, and it is a part of the training curriculum of the project. The module is entitled How to Fund Yourself. It has been prepared by the partners from Greece, from OECON Group, Business and Development Consultants. And today I have with me Mrs. Athanasia Ioannidou and Mrs. Evanthia Stavrou, who will be your trainers and presenters of the module. So thank you very much, ladies, for being here today. And I will continue with the aims of today's training. I see that there is a question in the chat. Yes, the previous meetings have been recorded and they are all available at the YouTube channel that promotes the project and, of course, the website of the project. In a few minutes, I will share with you the links also to the website where you will be able to access the recorded versions of the previous webinars as well. So the aims of today's training first is to provide you guidance on how on existing funding opportunities for organizations of the cultural and creative sector, to explain you some basic EU funding terms, principles, and how you can visualize your project proposals in order to access EU funding. Moreover, this training webinar aims to provide you guidance on existing funding opportunities for artists as individuals. The webinar will mainly cover the existing fundings for mobilities and residencies that artists can apply for, and will, of course, explain some residency programs and will guide you by providing you some insights and tips on how you can draft your motivation letters, or also known as residency personal statements, which are commonly used as a main requirement when applying for residencies. So, some general rules about the implementation of all the webinars. First and foremost, I have to inform you that due to the project's requirements for implementation and reporting, these and all webinars are being recorded. This is always in accordance with the GDPR. Therefore, if you don't wish to appear in the recorded version of the webinar or in some promotional photos that may be taken later on during the session, then you can keep your cameras turned off. I have shared with you in the chat, and I just shared it with you again in the chat, a link that leads to the digital attendance list of this webinar. It is necessary for you to fill in the attendance list, both due to the requirements for the project's implementation, but also because this is how we will be able to later issue your certificates of attendance. And lastly, I will also share with you by the end of today's training another link that will lead to the digital evaluation form, which I will ask you to access and fill in as well, because it is very important for us to have your feedback. So this is the attendance list that I have shared with you in the chat. As you can see, we need you to write your full names, the name of the sending organization or the organization from which you were informed about the training, your country of residency, your email address, and your signature. Now, regarding your signatures, if you cannot or do not want to copy and paste your signatures here, then you can simply write your full names again in this section. It works for us. This is also the evaluation form that I will share with you by the end of the training. As you can see, it is accessible both through your computers and your mobile phones. Now, some rules of communication. As I said before, the meeting is being recorded, therefore you may as well see an automatic message appearing on top of your screen. Also, some screenshots may be taken later on during the training. So, in accordance with the GDPR, if you don't wish to appear in either of them, then you can just keep your cameras turned off during the whole session. Now, as far as it concerns your microphones, your microphone should be on mute during the whole session unless you're asking questions or generally having the permission to speak. In case of questions, you can first raise your hand here digitally, and once the trainers have given you permission to speak, then you can unmute yourselves. Lastly, as I said before, it is necessary for us to have at least your full names, countries of residence, and email addresses written in the attendance list correctly. This is important both, as I said before, for the project's reporting, but also because if we don't have your full names and email addresses, we won't be able to issue your certificates of attendance. So please follow this link and write your full names and email addresses correctly. And if by any reason you cannot access the link, you can write here in the chat your full names, country of residence, and email address, and I will make sure to include you in the list. So, before giving the floor to today's trainers, this is just an indicative agenda of how this session will go. We're already done with the introductory part of the training, so the next 45 minutes will cover EU funding for organizations of the culture and creative sector, and will focus on how to develop a project proposal and specifically how to conceptualize and create a concept note of a proposal. It will be you will be introduced to this topic by Athanasia Ioannidou. Then we will have a short break of 5 to 10 minutes. And the last 45 minutes, trained by Mrs. Evanthia Stavrou, will cover EU funding for artists and how you can access some specific programs, residency programs, and how to develop your personal statements. The last 5 minutes will cover some conclusive remarks made either by the trainers or by you. And during this short period, I will share with you the evaluation form. So that's all from me. Thank you very much again for joining today's session. Without further ado, the floor is yours, Nasia.
Thank you, Yorgos. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. I'm Athanasia Ioannidou. I'm a project manager working for OECON Group, and today we are going to discuss about how to fund yourself, how to fund creative projects, and how to fund the creative organizations. Before starting with the main issues that we are going to discuss, I would like to make a short introduction about the topics that we are going to discuss during this first part. First of all, what we are going to discuss is what are the funds, what are the resources available, and how organizations can actually get funded. Then we are going to describe the main principles on how to draft a proposal and how to actually gain the grants available. And we are going to close the first session today about how to prepare a funding proposal, and we are going to have a practical exercise of how to structure a nice concept note, so how to make your ideas visible. Regarding the outcomes that we expect to have after finishing today, so we want all of you to be able to gain knowledge about existing EU funding programs and the available opportunities for you, to gain knowledge of the main principles and the rules for participating in all those EU funding opportunities, and to gain knowledge on how to set up a project proposal concept note. So this is the practical thing that we have said earlier. So the first step is to start with the theory. I don't want to go very deep into it because I want the workshop to be more practical, but theory is something that we need to go through anyway. So, what are the funds and the resources? There are so many funding possibilities for the cultural organization that can benefit for EU funded projects. So actually the European Commission has implemented a number of programs to boost jobs, to boost growth and investment throughout the latest financial framework, which started in 2022 and is complete in 2030. So actually, the European Commission starts a new programmatic period every 7 years. Usually, it's the non-governmental organization that received funding from a number of programs, such as the European Social Fund, the Creative Europe, Europe for Citizens, Horizon 2020, humanitarian aid, and any other available funds. But also there are different EU programs that we are going to see each one in order to be able to understand what each program has to offer. But unfortunately, funding opportunities can also be found in other areas. So what you need to have in mind at the beginning is the nature of the project submitted, its scope and its priorities. This is how you will be able to understand which type of fund better suits you, better suits your idea, and better suits the activities and the projects that you want to implement. So there are different EU funding opportunities in different policy areas. So applying for an EU fund can be really bureaucratic and a difficult process that requires, of course, advice or specialized staff. But there are also a lot of possibilities to receive funding through a combination of those financial resources. As you can see, we have identified some of the main types of funding. First, there are the grants. The grants actually are more connected with financing organizations, and especially non-for-profit making organizations, because EU funding doesn't allow to make profit under the co-financing that the European Commission provides. So grants is mostly subject to centralized management by the European Commission, so either directly by its own departments or indirectly through EU agencies that are based in all EU member countries. Grants actually represent a major part of the European Union's funding opportunities and fall into two broad categories. The first major category is grants that actually finance actions intended to help to achieve an objective that forms part of EU policies. And the other is the operating grants that actually finance the operating expenditure of a body pursuing an aim of general European interest or an objective that forms part of an EU policy. Mostly grants are based on costs actually incurred by the beneficiaries for carrying specific activities. Then we have the financial instruments, which mainly are measures of financial support providing on a complementary basis from the budget in order to address specific policy objectives of the European Union. They can take many forms, such as loans, guarantees, other risk-sharing instruments, and can be combined with grants. And we have the prices, which is what you can understand is actually financial contribution given as a reward for something. And there is also the subsidies, which are again a really big part of the funding provided mostly by the European Agriculture Fund for Rural Development. The most common type of funding used from organization is actually the grants, which is more friendly towards organizations and can be more easily be used by people also in the cultural sector. There are also some specific general funding principles. So all EU-funded opportunities have a co-financing principle. So approximately 90% of the grants available have a co-financing rate, which means that the organization should be in a position to co-finance a percentage mostly up to 10 to 20% for smaller projects and up to 40% for bigger programs and bigger projects. And there is also the no double financing rule. What that means? It means actually that you cannot receive funds from an activity that you want to implement or a project that you are implemented, both from European Commission and also from other sources. So you need to make sure in order not to have double funds for the same activities. You need to be able to understand that activities and projects that are funded by European Commission cannot be also funded from other donors. Of course, you are going to co-fund the activity, so your organization is also financial supporting what you are doing, but you cannot have a third-party donor or another, I don't know, supporter funding the same activity as the one that is funded under European Commission. And the third is the no-profit rule, which I also mentioned earlier. So the majority of the projects are directed to non-profit making organizations, not because the other organizations cannot participate. There are projects for SMEs, there are projects for profit-making organizations, there are projects for any type of legal entities in all EU member states, but you will need to be able to prove that you actually don't have a profit out of the project that you are submitting. This is because the European Union actually don't allow grants to be used for other activities, either that the ones already described in your project, in your idea, in the application that you are submitting. So it's different from having a loan or from equity funds. They are funding some activities that you have required grants for, and they don't allow to make profit out of it. As an example, you have asked to get funded to organize an event, and you are getting that grant. You cannot have third-party contributions for the implementation of that fund. So you can have private donors contributing, and also you cannot have tickets for the events that you're going to organize, because the organization of the event is funding from EU. So you can not ask for participants to pay to see, I don't know, the event that you are organizing. Now, as already mentioned, different types and different legal entities can actually participate. There are individuals that can participate, NGOs, companies, public sector. There are some minor programs that also allow individual participation, but there are not so many. So mainly they are focused on NGOs, companies, and the public sector. There is also some terminology that they're using for funding, and this can help you understand what it's, let's say, thing that you are reading online and connect it with what you want to do. So actually, when we are saying about the project is your idea. It is a series of activities aimed at bringing out specific objectives within a defined period and with a defined budget. So the project is the one that gets the funds from the different programs, from the different institutions. The program is actually the programmatic period and is the EU instrument that financially grants the budget for your idea, which is the project, and the fund is the money received. The call manual and the announcement. So the call announcement is actually the rules, let's say, the things that you need to follow in order to submit your proposal. So each program has specific calls, and those calls, they issue those manuals to help you understand if you can participate, how you can participate, what is the funding rate, what is the funds available, and gives you some instructions about the thematics and about the objectives and the goals that your proposal should have. Also, the call manual includes the eligibility rules. And what are those? Those are the specific rules and procedures that you need to respect in order to receive the grant, to receive the money. Eligibility rules can have different forms, like identify the type of organizations that are eligible for the specific call and the specific program, the number of the partners to be involved in a proposal, the countries to be involved in a proposal, the number of establishment of years of the organizations participate, and any other thing that can actually lead you to understand whether this call is something that you can participate or not. European Commission respects 100% the eligibility rules. If you don't follow everything, so if you lack one of the rules included there, your project will not be approved actually. So if the call identified the ones 3 partners from 3 different EU member states, then you need to have in your project 3 partners from 3 different EU member states. If you have 3 partners from 2 EU member states, then your project will not be approved because you didn't respect the eligibility rules of the call. Then we have the online platforms and the EU login user account. Online platforms are actually platforms linked to all available funding programs of European Commission. There is a different platform for Erasmus Plus program. There is a different platform for Create Europe program, and there is a different platform for Black Sea program. So there are different platforms connected with EU funding. The information regarding the specific platform that you need to use for the submission of your project is identified in the call manual. So everything you need to know is there, including the online platforms. And we have the EU login. So the main platform that EU is using is actually connected with this EU login data. So in order to participate in a proposal, you actually need to have this online identification through that EU platform. I'm going to analyze it a little bit better later. When we're discussing about submit a proposal, we actually refer to the submission of your project proposal. So once you have all the elements connected and you have used the right platforms and you have your project idea ready in the specific templates that the call gives you, you are able to submit your proposal. One of the most important things included in the call is the call deadline, which is one of the strongest elements that you need to have in mind, and it's one of the most important things to remember. So respect the call deadline. If the call manual identified that all projects should be submitted until the 25th of October at 6 o'clock, everything needs to be submitted until then. 6:01, the platform will be closed and you no longer have the opportunity to submit the project. So 100% respect the deadline, otherwise your idea cannot be submitted. And also, please have in mind that it is better to submit your idea earlier than the last day of the deadline, because there are problems connected with the platforms, but you will see it in action once starting to submit your ideas. The application form. The application form is actually the document that includes in writing your full idea. There are different types of application forms. There can be electronic application forms, they can be specific PDFs or Word documents that needs to be completed and submitted. The call manual identifies which application form you need to use. The application form includes information related what's the idea behind the project that you are submitting, includes information related to the partnership, includes information about the aims and objectives of your proposal, a complete description of its work package included and its activity included, the budget of your proposal, information related to communication and dissemination of the project, and information connected with the sustainability of the project. These are the main elements included, and depends on its European program and on its call, you will find that there are similarities and differences. Some calls mainly focuses on activities and results. Other calls focuses mainly on management and other issues. So from reading the call, you can also understand which elements are more important to be included in the application form. And of course, there are specific questions that you need to answer in order to have it ready. Then, related to the terminology, mainly you have heard about having a PIC number and an OID number. PIC number and OID number are actually something like the VAT number of your organization. So actually is the PIC number is the 9-digit number and the OID it's 9 plus 1 letter. So it's actually the number that identifies your organization. Without having a PIC number or an OID number, you cannot participate in any calls. PIC number are connected with the majority of the programs available, while the OID number is mainly connected with the Erasmus Plus program. Then there is the project duration. So based on the call of proposals, you will need to follow and you will need to understand and define what's the duration of your project would be. You need to identify the objectives and the actual aims of your project proposal, what is planned to do, what you have to do. You will have to identify the results, the page limit. All of those elements are available in the call of proposal. You need also to identify the coordinators and the beneficiaries, so who will lead the project and who will participate. If you're having associated partners, so associated organizations that are not get direct funding, but can help you in some aspect of the project, identify the partnership, who will participate and get funded from, have the partnership agreements and the evaluation, identify the own contribution, identify the budget and the eligible cost, and the payments to be done, and audit the controls, which is something that you will see once get approved. I don't want to give more hints about that. So I would like, first of all, to focus on some available funding opportunities. So I would mainly focus on Erasmus Plus project, which is one, let's say, of the easiest programs available, and it can actually help also organizations that don't have experience in EU-funded projects. So it's a nice way to get started with Erasmus Plus. Once you have identified the program that you want to participate, which for us it's Erasmus Plus, you will need to start drafting your proposal. So you have the EU funding introduction. You have to use the applicable platforms as already mentioned, check the eligibility criteria, and start building your partnership. What are the main principles once we start drafting a proposal? So, first of all, we need to find the specific call that actually can support our idea. It's not only about having an idea. Ideas are not enough. You need to identify the appropriate call from the majority of the programs available, under which the proposal can be funded and implemented. You can find information about the available calls on the funding and tenders opportunity portal, here identified. This is the main platform used to identify calls and grants from the European Union. Since you have the idea and you have found the call that can actually support what you are doing, what you can search for is find your partners. Partnership is one of the main elements that are scored when you submit your final proposal. So building a strong partnership, it's a make or break related to EU funds. So you need to be able to select partners that fit your idea, that can actually provide to the project through their experience, and they have the expertise to contribute to the results that you are going to have and that you are willing to have. You can take a look and you can use the partner search tool provided by the European Union that can help you identify possible partners and ask them to participate to your project. As already mentioned, you need to have a PIC number or an OID number. In order to register for a PIC number or an OID is super easy. Is like starting, I don't know, participating in Facebook. Once you have obtained the PIC number and the OD number, you will be required to provide some supporting documents related to your organization, like the statute, some financial documentation in order to prove your financial capacity, information about the legal representative, but it's not something super hard. It's actually super easy. And there is a lot of support given from the validation system and the validation team of European Commission. Based on the templates found on the call, inside the call of proposals, you can start drafting the application form, and you can be as specific and as describable as possible. Because your main focus will be to convince the evaluators that your idea should get funded. Is a highly competitive, let's say, procedure. So you need to be able to think and act as the evaluator in order to be able to write your proposal the best way possible and to convince them that your application and your idea should get funded. Of course, all the programs give support for the people that want to apply. There are several info days, and you will find information about the info days also in the call document or in the website of Funding at TEDers Opportunity Portal. This is a small, let's say, intro on how to register to EU Funding at TEDers Portal. As I said, it's super easy. It's an electronic system. You can check it by yourself, and you will see that actually applying to get a PIC number is not that hard. And you can play with it a little bit, and you can search for available funds. Just check it. It's user-friendly. You can check it also from your phones. And that gives you actually access to all available calls and to all past and future calls that were announced and are announced through European Commission. And this is some of the information required to obtain a PIC number. So you can say that the information required are legal name, a registration number, so things that once your organization is legally registered, you already have them. This is an example of the application package that is available in all calls. This is the application form. you can see that actually this is a Word document. It may vary if it is an online application form. This is an example of the table provided for the budget. And this is an example related to which aspects should be included into the application form. I will not stay too much and discuss too much about the eligibility criteria because you need to check individually the criteria included in the specific call that you have asked for. We have discussed about the geographical criteria. I have given you an example related to the partnership. So have in mind, it's one of the most important elements. If you don't respect the eligibility criteria included in the call of proposal, your proposal will not be funded, and actually it will not also be evaluated. So, first of all, the evaluators check that you respect the eligibility criteria. If you don't respect them, then the content of your project will not be evaluated. So, as already said, it's pretty important to choose suitable partners to participate in your project. First of all, your partners should also respect the eligibility criteria. Eligibility criteria are for everybody. So if the call says that it's not eligible to include public authorities, then public authorities cannot be included in the project period. It's not only about the applicant organization, but it's also about the participating organization. So, building a partnership can have different forms. Building a partnership means that actually you are sharing responsibilities from the other organization participating in your proposal. You can either, as the coordinator, write the full proposal. You can either ask the support of the partners to write the proposal, but in any case, legally, you are all responsible for implementing what you are getting the grant for. In the application form, you should identify the different roles that your partners would have into the project proposal. And of course, you need to be able to explain why you have chosen it and what added value they bring into your project idea. But of course, responsible for submitting the application is the coordinator with the support of the partners. How to build the consortium? Read the call manual carefully. You don't want to miss any information regarding eligibility. You don't want to make mistakes about the type of partners that you can include and the number of partners that you can include, because also the number of partners is identified in the call of proposal. So when building and choosing your partners, always have in mind the manual, the call manual. Now, how to prepare for the funding proposal? What you can do? First, you start with the project proposal. So, finding the specific application and actually start writing and start scheduling what your idea should include. So, start by framing the project's problem, because mainly the grants given are connected with solutions regarding specific problems. So, if the problem is that artists actually don't have a connection with the entrepreneurial world, then you should have a project connecting artists with entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial idea. So what is the main problem? I have identified blah, 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 that the main problem is that, and include also concrete data to describe the problem. Then have the framework of your project proposal. Have a concrete project plan and start drafting your proposal. How to draft the proposal? Starting again, as we said, for the problem. Proceed with actually checking what has happened in the past related to the problem that you have identified, the stakeholders involved, if there are any good examples related to what you want to do, and start combining the problem with the actual research that you have done related to this problematic area. And propose a solution. Create a logical framework of the proposal, brainstorm some activities, and actually propose a solution regarding to the problem that you have identified. Finalize the writing. Visualize the proposal. So create the timeline of the project and start actually writing down the proposal based on the questions included in the application form. Present the feedback. So once your proposal will be evaluated, you will receive feedback from the evaluator. Revise. If you have a good score, your proposal will be granted. But again, there will be some comments from the evaluators that you need to take into mind in order to implement your project. So changes can also be made after your project is approved, not major changes, but minor changes in order to have a smoother implementation based on the comment received. If your project is not approved, use the comments from the evaluator to have a better proposal next year and resubmit it. Make it better, understand what went wrong during the first submission, and don't be afraid to resubmit and try again. Most of the applications submitted are not approved during the first stage. So they are not approved the first time they are submitted. Take the comments, make it better, improve it, and resubmit it. And of course, try to implement it based on what you have written in the application form. But how do we make it from having a project outline until having a complete project proposal? We identify the aims of the project. We identify the project actions and should be really specific. Identify the expected outcomes and have specific targets of what you want to achieve. Highlight the European added value because we are discussing about European grants. So what European Commission wants to see is that we are adding a value to what we are calling European policy, to what we are calling European character. And highlight the sustainability, how your project results would be sustainable without the financing from the Commission. So you need to be able to prove that actually your results will be maintained for a specific period, let's say, without the funding of the European Commission. When you have identified how to identify the problem. So how to start actually? A well-formulated problem has a clear context and defines the aims of the project, the general objectives and the results. Everything is connected. You cannot do one step without following from the second step. So have in mind that the things that you are writing in your proposal should be all connected, starting from the identification of the problem, going to the problem analysis, moving to identify the goals and the specific activities included in the project, moving to having the general and the specific objectives, the expected results, and the sustainability of the project. So, you also need to show why the problem that you have identified is relevant to the things that you are proposing. So you need also to identify some of the problematic areas considering when you are writing your project. What will happen if the problem is not solved? Because of course, having a specific amount of money, let's say, cannot solve the European issues that we are dealing for so many years. In your proposal, you need also to identify that. So, if the problem isn't solved, who or what will be harmed? Is the problem seen in other contents, and why does the problem need to be solved? So, have in mind that there is a whole analysis that needs to be included into the application form before moving to the core activities described. And also, you should follow a self-awareness part. So, what do you have at your disposal? You're not starting from scratch. Is your personal experience that matters? Is the organization experience that matters? Is previous practices that you have identified and possibly can help you solve the problem that you have identified at the beginning? What do you have as resources, as expertise, as whatever? What do you have in your hands? What do you have at your disposal? And you can include it in the proposal and potentially can lead you to having concrete results. What is visible missing? What could potentially create a problem? What would be a potential to capitalize on? So you need to start thinking in a full aspect of what is your vision, what you want to proceed, and you need to be really specific what is there before you and what will be there after you. This is some examples of the problem analysis. I will not go through in that because I really want to proceed with the exercise that we have ready for you. Of course, when we are discussing about specific objectives and specific goals, of course, you are all familiar with this SMART framework, that your objectives should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. This is the logic that EU programs also uses. This is also a visualization about the timeline of the project and what the project needs to include. You need, of course, to have the problem, have the solution, have the objectives, have the results, and all of them be in a specific time frame that those results can be achieved. And now I can proceed with the practice, let's say, and I would like to share with you an example of a concept note. When you start drafting your application and you start drafting your idea, you should have a concept note. What is the concept note? It's the main idea that you can use to send it to your partners, to send it to your collaborators, to send it to people that are interested to participate in your project and to participate in your idea, and they can have a view of what you want to do and how you want to do it. So I would kindly ask all of you to open your cameras and to open your microphones and try to play with this concept note that I have participated and try to identify a project idea and to start drafting it. So let's have a specific proposals that we can work with. Since cultural footprint project is about connecting the cultural sector with the entrepreneurial sector, we can work on that again. And let's say that we are going to write a project that is designed to blend the cultural heritage of Europe with entrepreneurial skills and innovation. So fostering an entrepreneurial spirit with the context of cultural preservation and promotion. And the project can mainly aim to empower individuals to create sustainable businesses related to culture and heritage. So, does anybody wants to suggest a title for the project? Don't be shy. Just think of something that if you've seen it somewhere will make you think, this could be a good project. Any ideas? If not, I can suggest something like, I don't know, nurturing innovation through culture. I don't know, like cultural entrepreneurship. It's basic, but you need to start from somewhere. Then you need to identify what is the concept behind the project. So what is the problematic area here? What is lacking? What is missing when we're discussing and we want to connect entrepreneurship with the creative industry and especially with cultural issues? What is the problematic here? I think one of the main problems is that creative industry and especially artists focus more on their creativity rather than making profit out of what they are offering. Yes, Evita, we can hear you.
Nasia, I would also go the other way around. Instead of always saying what the artists are lacking compared to the entrepreneurs, what if we see what the entrepreneurs lack compared to the artists?
Yeah.
So how about a project that, because The difference in the creative cultural projects to the entrepreneurial projects is that they're human-centric, they're more inclusive, they have more emotional intelligence in the management. So how about creating a training and a peer-to-peer exchange for a more human-centric management using the holistic facilitations used in culture? That was the simplified version in my head, by the way. I don't know if it helps or how the rest of the colleagues feel about this, or if they want to expand on the idea, because we do have a lot to bring on the table as creatives. It's just that we don't always know the value of it, and that the business aspect that we are lacking.
Yeah, exactly. It can work both ways, actually. So either you are targeting the lack of skills from one of the two aspects. That can work both ways, and that is an excellent example. So the concept behind the project could be what Evita said, that actually entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial sector lacks of human-centric approaches related to creativity skills. So they are focused on different aspects. So what we can provide to them is actually this training on how to have human-centric approaches, how to build their business culture based on that. Of course, here you will not write only 2 sentences. You will have to be more specific, and you will have to make a short description of the problem identified and how the overall project can find a solution on the problem that you have shared. So after you have the main idea and you have identified the main problems and what your main solution will be, you can start working on the specific activities implemented. Mainly, the projects and the activities included are defined under specific work packages. 2 of the mandatory work packages approximately in all calls is the work package for project management and work package for the dissemination and communication of the project, because as already stated, it's really important to highlight the European added value that the project will give. So, work packages related to what discussed previously should be connected with the trainings that you are going to provide. So one work package, for example, could be the development of the training materials and the development of the materials that you are going to use. Training materials can be whatever. So you can start by structuring your own course. You can start by using courses already worked with other target groups and say that you are going to rebuild them and update it to fit your problem. It can be face-to-face, it can be interactive training materials, it can be theoretical training, it can be just the structure of a training program or whatever. So work package 4 can actually be the delivering of the training program, that it can take many forms actually: online trainings, workshops, face-to-face trainings, using virtual reality to provide the trainings, do focus groups, do seminars. It can take a lot of forms based on what the problematic area is and based on what the target group is. And of course, the final work package can be, I don't know, providing mentoring, opportunities for the ones that successfully participated in the training program, and actually help, let's say, entrepreneur build a more creative, friendly culture inside their businesses. But it can be whatever. This is just a proposal. Once you also have identified the main work packages that you want to work on, you should start thinking about your target group. So, okay, you have the training materials, you have a training program that you are willing to do, but who these materials and who this program is targeted to? So it can be something broad, like entrepreneurs in general. But the thing is that evaluators actually don't like that much to have such broad target groups. Mainly, they want you to be able to focus in specific groups that can actually help you reach your target. So having a target group that is this broad is not helping a lot your application. So it's better to, instead of having entrepreneurs, to have SMEs. It's something completely new. Have SMEs in a specific sector. Have, I don't know, female-led SMEs. So try to describe your target group better. Also, don't identify only the final users of what you are doing. Your target group is not only the final users. Your target group is also the trainers that are going to provide those training programs that you will create. Those trainers should be trained using the materials that you have developed. So the trainers, the entrepreneurial trainers, I don't know, are also a target group of the project. Also, your target group can be really specific, like having small and medium-sized enterprises in a specific sector, or having small and medium sizes working with a specific target group. Try to specify your target group the best way possible and don't have it that broad. So now you have the concept behind the project, you have an idea of the work packages, you have your target group, but you also need to identify in the concept the expected results. So what do you expect to have as a result once you have implemented the project? Try also to identify the numbers. So we expect for 100 small and medium-sized enterprises to get trained using our materials. This can be a specific result. And of course, you need to be able to identify the greater result that your project should have. So that, let's say, you can identify also as a result that you are about to change the mentality of the entrepreneurs in the partner countries. Start with a specific, include specific targets and specific results, and then when we are discussing about the sustainability, also include more broad results that will help the people that are connected with the project but cannot be 100% participating in your activities. And then have a discussion and identify the partnership. The partnership, let's say, when we're discussing about connecting the creative sector with the entrepreneurial sector, you need to have organizations that actually have the expertise related to the creative sector, but you also need to have organizations that are focusing more on supporting entrepreneurs. So by mixing the expertise, you can have an excellent partnership. I think that once you have identified those elements in the concept note, then you're okay to start drafting your full application. Since Yorgos has mentioned that my time is over, I will not want to steal more time for Evita, that she's going specifically to focus on funding opportunities for artists. So I would like to thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry that Evita stole some of your time, and I hope that you enjoyed the first part, and I'll give the floor to Evita. Thank you all.
Hello, thank you, Nasia, for such an amazing introduction and breakdown of the EU funding in its more complex forms, which is always a struggle when we see all those applications and all those forms. It can be scary, and the breakdown really made it into two bite-sized pieces that we can chew down as information. So thank you for that. Another thing that we have to remember is that, as mentioned in the whole framework of this series of presentations, we are focusing on collaboration, not competition. And also in the Erasmus program that Nasia explored, the partnership, the concept, the deliverables should always benefit everyone. So what are we going to see together? Is like, okay, this is for organizations, but I'm not an organization. How could I get the funding as an artist, as a creative, as someone that is active in the creative industry? So Yorgos, could you share them?
Yeah, Vita, I'm just sharing. In just a few moments, you will see the presentation, so you can take control of it.
Thank you. So we're going to go and visit some of the resources available. They are not the only resources available. Throughout the presentation, I truly invite everyone to just open your microphone, interrupt me and ask whatever is not clear, because if we leave everything at the last minute, maybe you will forget the question or you will not get the information that you need. And for me, it's more important to cover the chunks of information we want to cover rather than going through the entire presentation. So we somehow proceeded without a break. I do know that everyone is probably a bit tired. So before I start talking, I just give you like 30 seconds to move a bit your head, move the hands, stand up, sit down, to have some movement so we can dive in the second part. Just a minute to shift. I will get up from my chair to give the example. Just go up, move my hands, shift a bit, and now I can sit again. And it's not that I'm refreshed, but it's better than before. So how to fund yourself. And at the same time, when I don't know why, whenever I read this presentation, I read how to find yourself. Because sometimes as creatives, by funding our deeper projects, our desires, our research projects, we're also finding ourselves. So I found it a very interesting word game that my brain plays on this topic. So we're going to talk about residencies and mobility possibilities for artists. What do we hope that we will learn through this presentation? That we will get some knowledge on the existing residencies opportunities and how you can search for additional ones, knowledge on the main requirements when applying for a residency, knowledge on how to draft a motivation letter or a residency personal statement, which it's one of the hardest parts usually at the first time that you're applying for a residency. So what is a residency? So artist residencies are usually refer to artists in residency programs, or you will see them with the very funky title AIR program, AIR. Are chances offered to artists to work on projects, explore new concepts, and to be in another place outside of their comfort zone, in another studio, in another country, outside of the distractions of daily life. In addition to that, though, in most residencies, during your stay or during the period that you are hosted in this foreign institution, it could even be in the same country, in this other city, you will also be supported by a curator or the organization that is hosting you with networking or peer-to-peer learning, but it's always defined within the call of the residency. So the residencies will usually have information about the location, the funding, the discipline, the duration, and the environment. And there are many opportunities nowadays for residencies. It didn't used to be the case in the past. You will excuse me for a second. I also have, we have a second presenter that will be with us. So excuse me for this. So what's the application process? First of all, you have to find out that there is an open call for a residency. And that happens only with research, networking, and following the open calls. It should be within the theme of your practice, otherwise it doesn't make sense, or be multidisciplinary. And you should always read the specifics, like who is eligible to apply. Sometimes there are age criteria, other times there are region criteria, other times it's the criteria is about transnational collaboration, and what are the requirements to apply for it. So like everything that we apply for, you have to go in detail to the little fine prints, which are not so fine. Cultural institutions usually are very clear on writing it, and they also have a frequently asked questions part.
Evita, so if you want to take 1 or 2 minutes to calm down the baby, it's okay, of course.
I know, but I don't think it will change anything. She just needed.
Okay. But feel free during the whole session, of course.
Thank you. So the requirements to apply for a residency differ from residency hall to another, from one institution to another, but more or less, usually you will be required to provide your artist statement, which refers to it's like your artist bio, which is like, what have you done in the creative field until today? That's like your artistic CV, your creative CV, which indicates your professional background, your experience in art, and it doesn't matter if you're just starting, there is something that brought you here. So you have to share that something. And then you need your artist statement, which is basically, who are you as an artist? What are you doing in the current time? What have you explored in the past? So your artist statement has to be short, sweet, and inviting. So you should provide personal information. Now we're in the digital age. In the past, like 10 years ago, this wasn't such a big thing to offer a link to your website or an online portfolio. Now it is quite a requirement, either a website or your Instagram account. You should have work online somewhere, even if you're just starting, your CV. And many times, in spite of the amazing websites, CVs, and personal information, curators and cultural managers will choose based on the motivation letter. And why do you want to apply for this residency? What is it that attracts your attention to it? And usually they have some questions on what do they expect to see in this letter. So do spend your time and be yourselves in your motivation letters. Share your personality, your vibe, and your creative interests. Don't just copy paste something that you would send in a job interview. So what is a motivation letter or residency personal statement? How do we structure it? What should be considered the elements of success? And what are some questions that you should ask yourselves? There are many guides online for that you can follow. it should always relate to who you are. Don't try to present to be someone else, because that will also reflect when you arrive. And it's not fair to have different creative expectations also from yourself, and the stress you would have when you arrive to a foreign space. So you, like every letter, you should have the introduction, the main body, and the conclusions. How big, how interesting, how creative you want to make it, it's up to you. I received statements for residencies that were in the form of video, of animation, written, and sometimes even sketches. In my field, I was very open to all those ways of applying. Other institutions want the very structured. I mean, the more institutional is the organization that you're applying for the residency, usually the more institutional your application should be. If they would be open to other formats, they would indicate that in the application process. For example, sometimes Goethe Institute or Mythos Foundation, they would say your motivation letter can be either in written or in video format or in whatever creative endeavor and medium you feel comfortable with. So they give creative freedom, because that's the whole point of the artist residency as well. So what are the elements of success? You should give an emphasis. What's your motivation? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to move away from your comfort zone, from your studio, from your network, from your peers, and join this residency? What are your intentions? What do you hope to produce? What do you hope to gain? What will you share? There should be a positive tone. During many residencies, they're asking for an artist talk or an artist workshop, and that's not because they want to get the job of the artist at the institution, but it is an opportunity to invite the local ecosystem and create organically these connections. So in this statement, it's good if somehow you mention what do you bring on the table for the organization that is hosting, and you will understand if they're seeking that from the call. Before writing anything, read that call more than once. Read it one day, take some notes, visit it again the next day, take your time, because you will, as soon as you're done and you send it out, it's done. And of course, you will never be satisfied by your artist statement. No matter how many times you write it, no matter how many times you reflect on it, you rewrite it, you see it with friends, every time you send it out, you will be like, it's not good enough. And that's healthy. That's the creative reality. And it's okay. And every time you will improve it. So what should you ask yourself? What are your qualifications? What life events affected you? What's your background, previous work experience, and goals? And what did you find appealing in this program? Because I did have sometimes to evaluate residency applications, which were supposed for emerging artists, and I would get someone that is a bit more established in their field, in their country. And because they knew that would somehow appear bizarre to the curator that was reading, they stated that I know that I'm not actually emerging. I'm in the middle of my career. However, I do want to take this opportunity and join this residency because I want to get out of my comfort zone. I feel, and I actually read this letter and I found it very interesting. I feel, he said, that I am too comfortable in my network, in my home country. I have achieved and things are coming easy. And I want to experience if I can build a network based on my creative value somewhere that I'm not known, somewhere that is not so comfortable moving around in the galleries and the creative sector. And we chose that person. But of course, it also depends a bit on luck on the choice, whether the curator that is reading gets the vibe. If your letter came after a letter that was poorly written or exceptionally written. So it does matter also where do you land in the pile of reading the letters. I will not underestimate also the factor of luck, especially in programs that you would get 1,000 applications and 10 people will be selected. Also, you have to remember, as I said, what personal attributes you can bring to the program, and where do you find then the mobilities? Because, okay, we know you have to write a residency letter, but where do I find the residency? Where can I see what is related to me? Where do I see something that is interesting? So a very easy place to look is Erasmus+. In every country, there are Facebook groups related to each country for participants, because the Erasmus Plus calls are specific per country for the project. You wouldn't have to make the application that described Nasia earlier. These are already approved projects that have predefined mobilities with a specific target group. So, for example, if Cultural Footprint had a mobility related to artists that were supposed to go on a training or a residency abroad, they would make a call on the website and say, we're looking for 5 young people from Greece under 30 to visit Portugal for 5 days, and they will co-create a collective mural or a collective sculpture or whatever the objective defined in the project was. So you should follow the open calls. And you're like, where do I go? Do I go on the Erasmus Plus website? No, you follow organizations relevant to the art, active in the Erasmus field in your country and abroad. So when you start following the institutions, the organizations, and the networks that are relative to your field, these open calls will start coming up on your timeline, in your newsletters, in your messages, because it's about doing the breadcrumbing until you find your opportunity. So iPortunus, even though it's not active now, I always like to mention it because for me, it's one of the best examples of collective. I will be standing for the rest of the presentation, I'm sorry. So iPortunus is one of the best examples of collective development of a cultural opportunity. So iPortunus started as a solution to the fact that the mobility schemes that the European Union had in place were not functional for the artists. So what Goethe Institute and Isolazzi and other institutions proposed to the European Union was, let us pilot, let us try a freestyle, a more liberal way of mobility for artists. Because what they need is enough funds to travel, some budget to exist there, and a good network support system. So iPortunus had this open call where artists with institutions or on their own, individual artists without having their own professional ID, without being a company, even as freelancers, so you didn't have to have a tax ID, could apply to be in another country, in another studio, and create for 30 to 60 days or 5 days. Or it was very flexible on how you could build this collaboration. From iPortunus and the success it had, and the success lied on the amount of applications, on the amount of the good quality of projects that came through, and they were not able to be approved. And the results from these mobilities, because they could see, they could harvest the results, Culture Moves Europe came out of this project. Culture Moves Europe now has quite a significant budget. The call is 3 times a year, and you could apply as an individual artist in collaboration with someone you already worked on or you found always interesting and you spoke online and you developed a project and you want to work on it as a residency with the 4 or 5 different areas that they have. Or you can apply as a hosting institution. What is the added benefit now of Culture Moves Europe? That already the call for the hosts has been made and a lot of hosts have been approved. So on the next platform we are going to visit, which is called On the Move, you will see a lot of calls now trending in different countries from different interesting institutions from many different art forms saying, we have an open call and we will select 5 artists and they will work around this concept, or they will just come to our space and we will network them. These are mostly organizations that received the hosting funding from Culture Moves Europe, and now they're trying to get interesting talent to their region. because that's the whole motivation, to bring people together and co-create. So Culture Moves Europe is something that you have to follow, and the call for individual mobilities is actually open now. And they run a lot of info days. If you follow their Instagram, which I will share in the chat in a while, then you can actually place your questions on the application form directly to the project officers. Now, the Roberto Zimeda Fund is an international non-profit organization which was created just before 2000, so 1999. I'm always tempted to say early 2000, but it's not true, to respond rapidly and directly to artists and cultural managers who wish to travel in order to develop contemporary artistic cooperation projects in the Euro-Mediterranean region. So this has a focus on the Mediterranean region and in the Arab world. It has provided mobility grants to almost 1,500 artists and cultural operators and stands out as a key player and mediator on the questions of artistic mobility and cultural development in the Euromed region, which also brings collaborations, and it also brings the breaking down of stereotypes. Let's not forget the facilitation role that culture has. All these mobilities are not just for the sake of supporting the artists. European Union also sees the added value that culture brings in breaking down xenophobia, stereotypes, and all kinds of extremes. Culture is the glue that holds our society together. And that's how now they're also trying to combine this information with the new European Bauhaus movement that is coming together. And maybe that was the benefit of the pandemic, that suddenly the value of culture was more visible than before to the technocrats. So on the move, one of the networks I've been following almost since it started is a network that sells as a platform. It's a very useful resource. Register to its newsletter, follow it on Facebook, visit the website frequently, follow it on Instagram. On the Move is getting better and better in sharing the information, in harvesting information related to creative mobilities with a focus on artist residencies. And because it's part of the European networks, they have access to all the other cultural networks, and they are now, let's say, the point to be to share your creative mobility or artistic mobility, also if it's from Erasmus Plus funds. The amount of opportunities that you can find through On the Move is incredible. And it's right now, I invite you to just click On the Move and check what's on either on Facebook, Instagram, or their website, and you will see that there is a lot out there that you could apply for. And they always have a link. They have an external link to the actual call, so you know where to go. They also outline the basic information, so you don't have to go to the website necessarily if you don't qualify the selection criteria. So in their first information, it's like they are doing, they're skimming the information, making it easy for the reader to see, should I apply for this? Am I interested? Yes or no, and move to the next. A similar website is Creatives Unite, which, if I'm not mistaken, was initiated by ECHN networks of the cultural sector. And I keep on speaking about networks. Why do I speak? Resartis, of course, is a very known platform for artist residencies. It's a very old network. Resartis, though, has also a lot of paid residencies. So Resartis will also have information about places that you could rent to be there, and then a curator supports you. It's not that every residency that you will see, it's funded or supported, which is also a great resource. It depends, what do you need as a creative at any given time? But it also has a lot of funded opportunities. The European Cultural Foundation Office is located in Amsterdam. It connects 15 different nationalities and works as a dedicated team on realizing their missions. And their mission is to develop and support cultural initiatives and let them share experience and imagine the future. And as you can see, Yorgos is copy pasting the links in the chat. You will, anyway, this presentation will be available online, and you will be able to revisit this information. I don't expect anyone to be able to absorb everything that I'm saying. And I try to speak fast because I don't want to take too much of your time, and I want to have some time for Q&A, which I believe will be far more interesting than me sharing just websites that you can go through. And then we can actually make the most of our interaction. So here we have an example of a project that has been funded by the EU, a project that was developed as per the process that Nasia explained to us before. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not part of the consortium. I didn't develop this project. I'm not part of the team. Yes, but part of the objectives of this project were to offer transnational collaborations between designers, creatives, SMEs, crafters, makers, and films. So they do have different open calls at a time. The Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, another one of my favorite programs and a great opportunity. So the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, most creatives, they feel, but I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a crafter, I'm a visual artist, I'm a gallery owner. How do I relate with young entrepreneurs? And what is young? I'm 30. No, young entrepreneurs doesn't have an age limit. I think non-formally we say 35. Maybe Nasia can correct me on that. And it does connect aspiring entrepreneurs with established entrepreneurs in their field, and will give funding to cover a lump sum funding to cover your exchange up to 6 months learning next to an established entrepreneur. How does that translate in our world? I'm a visual artist, and I always wanted to run my e-shop next to a gallery in the city center that should sell not fine art pieces, but accessible community collective art. But I don't know how to do it sustainable because I've never done it. I just have the idea. And when I go on the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs side, I can check who are the host entrepreneurs, who are the mentors I could go related to the arts. And I could find an entrepreneur that is already killing it in an area similar to what I'm interested. And then I can go and work alongside this person and job shadow and co-create for up to 6 months, not worrying about my livelihood, because I will be provided the funds to be able to afford to fly, work. And these are funds that they will not tell you you have to spend that much amount for money for food or for shelter. It's up to you how you manage it, because it's for entrepreneurs, so it can be used there. Many of these exchanges led to joint projects, led to partnerships, led to new products and lifelong collaborations. For example, we had a collaboration with a dancer from Martinique through this program, and we were able to bring the dances and the traditions of Martinique in our establishment. So that's what the hosting entrepreneur wins. And our new entrepreneur, she was able to develop her business mindset around how she could organize her services, because before she was more focused on the artistic approach of dance, which was not so sustainable. So now, instead of telling you what we should, I mean, we could do an exercise to write your residency personal statement, but at this point, I would invite questions. And if you need additional information or clarifications, which I'm sure there would be many from what I shared so far. So do open your microphones and feel free to ask questions.
So everyone, as I'm writing in the chat, you can just unmute yourselves and have a Q&A session, or you can write your questions here in the chat.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Marina, am I right?
Hi.
Yes. Hello. Yes, of course.
I heard in the first presentation a piece of information that I was on my way and maybe I didn't hear it very well. In regards to whether you can get extra funding, not extra funding. It was about double funding. And the way it was explained was that, for example, if we are in the Erasmus that Evita, you presented in the second presentation, we couldn't get funding from sponsors to match the difference in our expenses for that, for example, or for other European programs, we couldn't get other sponsors to fund in money for things that are funded by European programs. Is that what was said, or did I not understand something?
Thank you. I can answer that. So I was discussing about available grants. So if you are referring to the program that Evita presented, Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, if you are applying for Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, you are applying as a beneficiary. So actually, the program pays you to visit and learn from a more experienced entrepreneur, and is actually paying your expenses in living in a foreign country. You're not getting paid for the services provided to the host entrepreneur. Double funding is when you are applying for a grant as an organization mainly, and if you are applying for specific activities. So if you want to get funded for creating a training program and developing training materials, you cannot ask from another donor to actually pay you for creating the same training materials and providing the same training program. So it depends on who is applying and why you are applying. So for Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, you are actually a beneficiary, and you are receiving money in order to be able to live in a foreign country for up to 6 months. You can ask for somebody else to support your staying at a foreign country, but it's up to you, because actually the program doesn't check if you are receiving support from anyone else. For grants,
sorry, maybe I used the wrong example. Yeah, I'm talking about organizations, not about individuals. So if an organization is in a European program and gets funding for it, they cannot have other sponsors putting money in for the same program. What about matching funding that ministries offer, for example, or other organizations? That's not allowed?
Actually, no. So in some European projects, there is also public funding to support the co-financing rate of the project. But if you are implementing a project that is 80% funded by European Union and through a specific program, then for the same project idea, you cannot receive money from another source.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was you cannot receive money from another European Union source, not from any other source. So this is a big difference. Thanks.
Yeah, you can ask for support only to cover your co-financing rate, which you may have donors in the organization,
but you need to cover only those 20%. You cannot ask for additional funds that will actually cover what is already covered by the grant awarded by European Commission.
So you can't have funds for the 20% by other organizations. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because somehow you need to be able to present that you have the funds to co-support the project. So for that 20% or 10% or 40%, it depends on the program, you can have supporters, you can have donors, but it's not directly supporting the specific project. So the donor is supporting your organization, and you can use those funds to co-fund the project. But you cannot ask for donors to support specific activities already funded by European Commission. So it's a do and don't at the same time. The donor supports the organization. You can use the funds to support the project without connecting 100% the donor with the project. Because European Commission doesn't care where do you find that 20%. It's a co-financing rate. You need to prove that you actually have it. You can have it from a donor, you can have it from membership fees, you can have it from other activities that the organization implements, but you cannot identify another donor specific connected with the project, if I'm clear about it.
Now you're clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you hear me?
Yes, Emma, go ahead.
Yeah. So does GoFundMe also follow in this category? If the extra funding comes from GoFundMe, does it count
like to have a campaign?
Yeah, exactly, as a GoFundMe campaign.
A crowdfunding. Having
something.
crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot link it directly to the project. So crowdfunding campaign can be linked with the organization.
Okay.
Organization can use that money to actually cover the co-funding rate of the project, but the crowdfunding campaign cannot be directly linked to the project.
Earmarked, like let the crowdfunding cannot be for this specific project, but it could be for the organization, and the organization could choose to use it for this project or something else.
Yeah, mainly.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, first I want to thank you for your patience while my daughter was more vocal than before. And if you notice in the chat, I have shared the list of cultural pan-European networks. And I find that very important, that depending not only on your field of expertise or your art form, that you do follow their Facebook groups, their Instagram groups, their websites, and register to their newsletters, because they do share a lot of opportunities. And usually most of the active organizations in culture will be members in one of these networks, and they will share their mobility opportunity there. One example of a mobility opportunity that one wouldn't come so easily across unless they would be following one of the organizations that are members to it, or the general website of the collective, is the European Theatre Convention Artist Residency for emerging directors and dramaturgs. That is an amazing opportunity to work in a state theatre, in a professional production, have your name appear, and gain valuable experience while building a network. Because we are the people, we are our connections, and we learn through all these immersive opportunities. So I cannot state enough that you should be following the opportunity so the right information comes to you. Also,
Are there any other questions? Perhaps. Okay, if there aren't any questions, are there any other remarks by you, Evita or Nastia? Something else that you'd like to address before moving on with the evaluation form and closing the session?
I would like to check something and share something again. Nastia, if you want to go first, that would be great. If you have something to share.
Thank you. So I know that there is a lot of information shared with you today. So I just want you to have in mind some main things when searching for grants or searching for funding. First of all, is use the platforms available. So use the EU funding portal, use the partner search tool, use the European platforms. Second of all, try to identify the call that best suits your idea. There are a lot of calls, so try to be as specific as possible in order to be able to choose what better suits you. Try different programs and don't give up if your project is not approved during the first submission. Follow the evaluations and try again. It's not actually that simple to write the project, but it's also not something that you cannot achieve if you truly want to get funded. So European Union, European Commission offers a lot of opportunities, so use them. And I truly believe that you will be able to succeed. Just do it, see what the results would be. So the first time that you're going to submit something will not be that good. Link with professionals. So search out for organizations that can support you in the preparation. Reach out to us if you are interested. We have expertise in doing that. So reach out to us, reach out to other organizations and other partners. And I think that the results will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Evita.
I would like just to give, to take the opportunity after Nasia to also say, yes, do apply. The Culture Moves Europe has an open call for individual mobility that will close 31st of October. And even if you get a negative response, I don't like the term rejected. Even if you don't succeed at first, especially in these rolling calls, apply again. And it could be just that there were so many other applications that the evaluator liked. It doesn't mean that your concept was necessarily not of the quality that they seek. So apply, improve, get feedback from peers, and there is nothing that opens our creative potential than mobilities. It's very uplifting when you travel abroad out of your comfort zone and you feel like that you're among your tribe of creatives while you co-create. And many times when we travel in these residencies, it's not about what we create, it's that we can finally also see the value of our own process, because we see it also through the eyes of the people that have not been connected with us before. So the mobilities are more than just the trip, is really reaching I would not say the full capacity, we never reach the full capacity, going towards the fulfillment of our creative potential. And thank you for your time, patience, and interaction.
Thank you very much, Naskia and Evita, for the very useful insights and your detailed presentations. I believe that you both gave a very well-rounded picture of how EU funding opportunities work, both for those that want to access EU funding with their organization, or as individual artists. Thank you very much. Thank you very much also all of you for joining today's session and participating. I have pasted in the chat the links, first of all, to the evaluation form. Please, your feedback is very important for us. So I kindly ask you to follow this link and fill in the evaluation form. Moreover, I have also pasted the link to the project's website, since, as I've mentioned before during the session, all these information that was presented to you in today's session are all available as theoretical information in the project's Youth Training Handbook, which is available on the project's website. Besides, in the annexes, you will find terminologies, you will also find the exercises, and especially the description of the exercises, so that you can also access them individually and work on them, and, for example, develop your own personal statement, or have them as guides when conceptualizing your own project ideas. Besides, in the project's website, you can follow the news section, because there you will find the recorded version of all the webinars, which are, this section is being updated regularly. So in some days, you will also find the recorded versions of these webinars as well. The e-learning platform of the project, of the Cultural Footprint project, will also launch within this month, and you will be able to be directly benefited by it. And lastly, I would like to remind you about not the last 3 sessions, as I'm writing the chat, the last 2 sessions of our Business and Art Come Together webinars. On the October 31st and November 2nd, we will have our last 2 sessions. The last 2 sessions will delve deep into how you can visualize your own entrepreneurial projects and your own enterprises or artistic businesses and organizations. So the 9th module, which will be presented on October 31st, will introduce you to the 9th module, which is about how you can find the entrepreneur you, how you can develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And the 10th module, the last webinar, next Thursday, November 2, will cover how you can visualize your own business, meaning what are some basic insights, terms, knowledge generally on entrepreneurial development. For example, what is business planning, what is the business model, and especially what is the business model canvas, and how the business model canvas can be altered and adjusted to the needs of artists, so that you can visualize your own organizations of the culture and creative sector. So if you haven't registered yet for these last 2 sessions, you can follow the link I have pasted in the chat as well to register. These are very also important for entrepreneurial development mindset for artists. So that's all also for me. Thank you very much again, all of you, for today's session. Thank you, Naskia. Thank you, Evita. And I believe if there aren't any other remarks or questions, we can close today's session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Applause to Evita for her multitasking skills. Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a nice evening.